Good morning, everyone. I will call this GRMC Governing Board meeting to order at 9:02 on Thursday, June 29th. Mr. Billings, you're not ready, are you? Mr. Medina, will you read the mission, vision, and values?
Mission, providing exceptional quality patient-centered care in a healing environment. The vision to be the best place to receive care, work, and practice medicine. Values, I care, integrity, compassion, accountability, respect, and excellence.
Okay, if everyone would please.
Go ahead, I was just going to get an agenda, I'll do it. Sorry.
Okay. I think we have one over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's one right here.
Sorry, thank you.
No worries.
Sorry.
No worries. Will you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the state flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the members of the new Board of Trustees who are here. Seth Treger, Fred Fox, Betty Vega, Javier Salas, and Charlene Webb. Thanks for being here this morning. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move approval.
Second?
We have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Medina. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is recognitions. And we'll start, we have a couple of guests here today. We'll start with the folks who are not here. We'd like to recognize Frank Gramer, 5 years of service in rehab and wellness, and Pedro Corral, 15 years of service in nursing. We'd also like to recognize Christian Smith, a nurse with 20 years of service to GRMC. She's with us today with her sister and her grandson. And Tammy Bates, 25 years of service in compliance and contracts. So I get to say extra things today since it's my last day as the Gila Regional Board Chair. And I'm just going to say that it has been a great honor to me and to be able to honor all of these folks who work at GRMC. What I have learned over the last 3 years is that healthcare is most definitely a calling. It is an enormously challenging job, and the people who do that job are truly amazing, courageous, and resilient people. We deeply, deeply appreciate your services, Christian and Tammy, to Gila Regional Medical Center. What we'd like to do is bring each of you up individually and present you with a plaque in honor of your service. Christian, we'll start with you. That would be undignified, wouldn't it? thank you both so much for being here today. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is public input. Do we have anyone for public input? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the executive session. And for those of you who haven't been here before, when we do this, I'll read the legal citations, and we'll go into executive session, and we will ask all of you to move out to the lobby. When we're finished, we'll call you back in. So, any items in this section or items noted in the agenda executive session will take place in closed session to discuss limited personnel matters, threatened and actual litigation, medical, legal, QA&I, peer review issues, strategic and long-range business planning, quality assurance report, and board issues. Reference NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1, Sub H, and New Mexico Review Organization Immunity Act, NMSA 41-9-1. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Medina and a second by Mr. Billings. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We will now go into executive session. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to come back from executive session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Medina. Any discussion? So let the record reflect that pursuant to NMSA 1978, sections 10-15-1G9 and 4-48B-3H, the minute, oh no, I'm reading the wrong thing, excuse me. Please let the record reflect that we discussed only limited personnel matters, threatened actual litigation, medical, legal, QA&I, peer review issues, strategic long-range business planning, quality assurance report, and board issues. In reference to NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1, Sub H, and New Mexico Review Organization Immunity Act, NMSA 41-9-1. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Oh, I gotta say aye every time, don't I?
Yeah, every time. Oh,
Oh,
you
there's
go.
Mr.
You're
Billings.
off the
Good.
hook.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the governing board meeting minutes of May 25th, 2023, and May 23rd, 2023 executive session pursuant to NMSA 1978, sections 10-15-1G9 and 4-48B-3H. The minutes of the present open meeting will reflect that for the following meetings, the matters discussed were limited only to those specified in the notice of that closed meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Medina. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is old business, of which there is none. Moving on to the next session, new business. Item number 1 is consideration of recommendation from the Medical Staff Executive Committee for provider credentialing.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the MEC's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Billings. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of recommendation for the following matters of the Medical Staff Executive Committee. Item A, consideration to approve the nurse practitioner delineation of privileges. Item B, consideration to approve the hematology, medical oncology delineation of privileges. And item C, consideration to approve the credentialing by proxy polity. That is a revision for the record.
I move approval of all 3 items.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Brown, second by Mr. Medina. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of the First Amendment to the Medical Director Services Agreement for EMS for Gregory Corey, MD.
Make a motion. Oh, good.
I'm sorry, it was an amendment so that we could compensate him when he is completing required EMS training. To be the EMS director, it's required training, and we'll compensate him for that.
Perfect.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Medina and a second by Mr. Billings. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of the professional services agreement for radiation oncology for Daniel Arsenault, MD.
He is the radiation oncologist out of Amarillo, Texas, that we interviewed and really liked, and he's agreed to come to Silver City in September when Dr. Hayostak is retiring. He will be providing service on a weekly basis. He'll be in town every other week and then remotely the other week. He'll fly in and fly out and essentially be a part-time provider.
Move approval of this professional services agreement.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Billings. Any discussion? Great work on all of you guys for getting that done. That was pretty scary when Dr. Hayostak said she wanted to retire. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of coverage services agreement for the Emergency Department, Emergency Staffing Solutions, Inc. Margie?
As Dr. Meyerowitz described, this is the group that would replace Innova. Essentially, the contract, the coverage is the same as we're presently getting from Innova. There will be a provider on site 7A to 7P, and then on call from 7P to 7A. There will be an advanced practitioner there 24 hours a day. They will provide our ER director services and also our trauma director services. So we were very pleased that we were able to get someone to step in as quickly as we did when Innova gave us their 120-day notice.
Well, considering the challenges that we've had with the loss of other providers, this is an amazing turnaround, and I just really want to acknowledge Dr. Dalton and all the other folks at the hospital that worked really hard to make this happen.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to tell you thank you for the administration as well, Margie. This makes our citizens feel safe that, when it was first reported that one ER group would be leaving and, discussions occur and community talks and this is reassurance that you are on top of it. I want to tell you thank you because this was taken care of quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Dalton had a lot to do with that, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add that I think Innova has done an amazing job.
Yeah.
Everything I've heard is positive, and in fact, my personal experiences have been very positive. So it's a shame that they were forced out by the insurance situation in the state.
So is this I've got a question, is this a permanent solution?
What's the term of this? Yes, it is a permanent solution.
Okay.
Yes, and they did agree to at least 180 day out this time instead of 120, which is, but it's how long of it's a term?
I think it's 3 with 2 rolling ones, but I'd have to look at the agreement. I mean, as with all contracts, we'll have to refresh it when it comes up. It's our intention that they're our partners for a long time.
Okay.
You need a motion?
Well, I was going to get the answer to that question.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for too.
Joanne, we have a motion and a second, do we not?
It is 3 with,
Okay.
3 with,
3 with 2
with
rolling.
at least one renewal. I think 2 renewals are possible.
Sure. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Medina and a second by Mr. Billings. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of the sales agreement for laboratory testing reagents with Cepheid.
They're a vendor who we previously had a sales agreement with. They make our COVID tests. They're taking ownership of distribution themselves, and so we need a new sales agreement that's directly with them.
Move approval of the sales agreement?
Second.
A motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Billings. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of consolidated services agreement renewal with Imaging Equipment and CareStream Health, Inc.
So this is just basically maintenance of all of our radiology equipment, and Victor does a really good job of negotiating with these people, and it saved us some money, so it's a good policy.
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Billings, a second by Mr. Medina. Any discussion? So I think it's really great that we have somebody like Victor that's, this is what we've been talking about, is these folks taking responsibility for their areas, and the fact that he can negotiate and save us money is hats off to Victor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of Resolution 2023-17, approval of the FY24 budget.
And you have the full budget packet in your documents. This is the same budget that we discussed in May, and, follows our months-long budgeting process. Our core goals in here were to, defend our current service line, expand where we could, to make sure that we're providing for employee engagement, and, making improvements to the hospital where it makes sense to do so. And so the highlights are that we're expecting to break even for fiscal year '24 on operating margins. That'll be an accomplishment. We don't expect to quite hit that this year, but we've definitely proven that we can and we need to. And then beyond that, we're going to take $6 million, about half of that from grants, about half of that from our own working capital, and put it into the facility, targeting some major improvements like a telemetry system and a new MRI, as well as completing the Women's Services Center, as well as various minor improvements that our directors have identified as the most important to keep the hospital running the way that it needs to through the next year. It's possible that we'll be successful in obtaining grant money that addresses some of the currently budgeted as hospital money spend, and if we do so, we'll evaluate how we're doing during the year at that point and look at reallocating that money for other capital needs.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Medina and a second by Mr. Billings. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, on the salaries, the merit increases, I'm a little confused because it says 3% across the board, but to me, a merit increase is not across the board. And this is public session, so I'm assuming what I'm reading is a public document.
Yeah, so when we say across the board, what we say is that's our budget, so if you take your salaries and multiply it by
Could you say average then?
that 3%, then that's the average of.
Across the board sounds like
raises that we
everyone's
have.
getting that raise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
perhaps present that a little differently.
Yeah.
3% average makes more sense to me.
Yeah,
Fair
thank
point.
you.
Okay, thanks.
Do you want to amend motion? to
No need.
approve that? Okay.
No, not at all. Right, I don't want to change the motion just because of the text of the
Okay,
intro.
just making sure.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Mr. Billings? Mr. Medina, you have anything on the budget?
Nothing.
Okay. I think we have a motion and a second, but I can't remember who and what.
Motion second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Brown, second by
No.
Mr.
Eli.
I did the motion.
Motion by Mr. Medina, second by Mr. Billings. We've had the discussion, we'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thanks for
Moving
doing
on,
that, Patrick.
moving on to reports and updates. We'll start with the CNO report, which will be handled by the CEO, Ms. Molligan.
If you'll just bypass it, I'll just give it with mine. Is that
Okay,
all right?
perfect.
Cynthia is taking a long weekend. It's her anniversary.
A
so-
well-deserved.
A well-deserved long weekend, so.
Very good. Okay, Mr. Banks, that means you're up.
I'm going to try to get out of this last meeting with you with no tech issues. We'll see how I do.
Turn your mic on.
Oh, we're on. Okay, while it is June and our eyes are on the end of the fiscal year, I'm reporting on May, which is the 11th month of our fiscal year. And I'll start with the volumes as usual. We held rather consistent in the OR. The ER continues to run around 1,400 visits a month. And our total outpatient visits, including imaging, continue to rise through this fiscal year, as you see that blue line tracking up on the top right graph. Overall, we've had a much more consistent year in terms of volumes than either of the last two, and some of that is probably stabilization after COVID and people starting to seek care as they need it, as opposed to waiting on that. It certainly hasn't been entirely consistent, and so our goal is to manage to volumes on the month to month, regardless of whether they're up or down in any particular unit. And in May, we achieved that again. That $877,000 surplus is great to see without the benefit of a bunch of grant money this month. So the 782 shows a significantly higher margin than we've posted in previous months. The reason for that is that the finance team went back with our cost report preparer and really carefully evaluated our Medicare cost report for the 2021 year, as well as for the current 2023 year. And with our interim settlement from Medicare, realized about $750,000 of non-recurring revenue this month that really relates to the entire fiscal year as a whole, and is good work by the team to make us whole for the year in advance of the final cost report settlement. So it's a good result for us, and what it does is bites into that operating loss that I've been talking about for 9 months, 10 months, however many I've been presenting here. We're sitting at a $600,000 operating loss for the year. And that really, gives a good picture of how difficult it can be to recover, but also how powerful the cost report is in terms of, if you stay on top of it, making up for costs in excess of plan. I'm not forecasting right now that we break even on operating margins. I think there's a slight chance, but nothing that I would forecast with any certainty. I do think that if we, post a strong month in June to close out the year, then we can be confident, can really continue to be confident going into next year that operating margin goal that I just described in our budget is one that we can expect to meet and should hold ourselves accountable to. So then as I go into our key measures, you see a lot more of the same here. Tick up in the current ratio just shows that we collected that $800,000, kept our accounts payable. Our balance sheet looks a little bit better as a result. Days cash stays consistent, and it went down a little bit, but nothing that I'm alarmed by, and I do expect that to tick up into the 120 plus range, where we can hold our heads high and say we have 4 months of cash on hand in case something happens when we get paid for the tax credit that we applied for in December. And so that'll come through in June. One of the reasons we hold that much cash is that it's not always possible to predict everything that can happen in a healthcare environment. In a community like ours, if a physician has a family emergency and needs to leave town for 2 months, that significantly impacts our revenue. If we have a problem with a chiller on the roof and we need to spend $75,000 to fix it, we don't want to have to think about whether that's going to impact our ability to make payroll or not. And then really in a 40-year building, or even in a 1-year building, you can spend $20 million about whenever you want, creating new floor plans, putting new equipment in, getting the next best IT upgrade. but you're not guaranteeing yourself that you won't have some kind of a mechanical or other infrastructure problem the next month. So keeping 4 to 6 months of cash on hand, you know, someone once put it in a sort of personal finance way for me, and you know, a great way to describe this is that if you don't have some cash on hand in your bank account, you're always worried about something happening, whether it's a family emergency, whether it's your car breaking down, or whether it's anything else that can happen in life. And a hospital has higher expenses per day than most of us do in our personal lives, but it's the same theory. So we're incredibly pleased that we've been able to hold that all year, and that we're looking at it increasing a little bit towards the end of the year. Last, since this is our, you know, last meeting with you as our board, I'd like to give a few remarks about the partnership that has really been so incredibly successful these last 3 years. It started around July of 2020. You know, I think Health Tech actually was hired in June of 2020. But after the commissioners stepped in, you know, and realized that they needed partners in running the hospital, they identified Health Tech, hired Health Tech, and together, you know, put a plan together to address the fact that we previously lost, on average, approaching $6 million a year for 8 years running, and we had 9 days of cash on hand. That is about as scary a financial situation as a hospital can be in, and losing a hospital is never an option. So over the last 3 years, working together, we've completely turned that around. We've posted positive bottom line all 3 of those years, and that does include a lot of focus on grant money to help pull, you know, much needed projects to the forefront instead of leaving them on the back burner. And it includes, you know, that approach to operating break even, which is an incredible accomplishment in and of itself. As I say accomplishment, I want to caution that there's never such thing as mission accomplished. This is, you know, an environment where healthcare delivery continues to change at a pace that it hasn't in a long time. There's no guarantee that we won't face challenges over the next year. But projecting greater than 120 days of cash in the bank at the end of the year, talking about breaking even, we can say that we've hit that shared goal. I actually went back to the July 29th, 2020 minutes, which was, you know, stated as a focus on making sure that Gila Regional can stand on its feet for the long haul. We've proven that we can, and we're tremendously excited to, you know, carry that flag forward even as you hand off the baton to the next board. Most importantly, we've arrived here by recruiting and promoting local talent. We've provided millions of dollars of raises. We've protected our service lines. We've even expanded them in a few areas. And we've addressed critical infrastructure issues both as they've come up and proactively. We believe what we're doing is sustainable. There were some key executive players in this. You know, the first Health Tech CFO was a fellow named Dick Leash, who I never met, but who's, you know, worth mentioning as the start of our you know, financial turnaround under Health Tech. Gregory Brickner, who was my first boss at Gila Regional, and who, of course, we all know then took a turn as CEO later. Paul Rogers, who you know, taught me a lot and held down the fort, and you know, gave me the opportunity to step in and fill his shoes. And then John Freeman, who doesn't get a lot of airplay because I think he prefers it that way, but who's the through line for Health Tech, the AVP at the management company level, who's worked closely with every single one of the gentlemen who I just mentioned to make sure that they're keeping a steady focus on the future and managing the present so that we make incremental progress every year. It's not just executives. I've worked directly with Yvette Escudero and Evelyn Reed, who have both been around Gila Regional long enough that, you know, they saw some of those losses and some of that and all of that turnaround. I hired Cherry Lynch Nebre, who now reports to Jonathan Long, who's our permanent revenue cycle director. And that core team, along with, you know, a bunch of great staff, a lot of whom have stuck with us through the 3 years and before that I mentioned, you know, they work every day to keep getting better for the hospital's finances and in the ways that they're serving the community. We had 2 controllers, Kristen Iacono is our current controller, and Jennifer Klotz previously, who are, you know, unheralded heroes who do essentially all of the paperwork to make sure that these grants keep flowing and that we keep being able to fund the projects that we highlight. And then I'd close by just recognizing that when we had our most recent Leadership Development Institute, I challenged our directors to stand up and stay standing until they were able to articulate a contribution that they had made to our turnaround. Every single one of them was sitting within 3 minutes. You know, it is not a one office, one person effort. And I couldn't be more proud of being part of an organization that has weathered what we have and can now close the door on that chapter, go forward with a new board, and talk about the future of healthcare in Grant County. Thank you. Any questions?
So we're not going to get the opportunity to do this because we won't be around for the end of the year report. Well, I guess we will as the commission. You'll obviously give that to us at a commission meeting, but congratulations on the conclusion of your first year as our CFO.
Thank you.
We appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is we've already heard we heard the Chief of Staff report in executive session, so next item is the CEO report.
Good morning. This is my last meeting with you as trustees. I will continue the Mutual Admiration Society here. I do want to thank you for your stewardship, leading this organization for the past 3 years. You went from dire circumstances that Patrick just described to a successful position that we can move forward with. I do look forward to working with the new trustees. We had a very successful educational event in Albuquerque last week. It was fun to get to know the people that were there a little bit better, and I think they got to know each other better too. And so it was a good educational session. We did held our first Leadership Development Institute, or LDI, this month. That basically is us getting together and teaching each other, because we all have strengths. All directors and managers attended, and which I understand hasn't happened in years. That surprised me, because there was probably 50 of us in that room, and I said, when's the last time you all did this? And they all looked at me like, I don't know. I said, okay, well, this is going to change. So we will be doing this quarterly, because there's just a lot of synergy when you get that many people in the room and we're all working toward common goals. And it makes us better leaders. Better leaders have more engaged staff, which provide better patient care. So it all makes sense. We focused on employee rounding, just culture, and performance recognition. So like I said, our next one is scheduled for September already, and we're working on what our topics are going to be. We do have a slate of 4 candidates that we will be bringing forward for our formal on-site interviews for the Chief Nursing Officer position, and those will be held July 7th through the 13th. I had several candidates that I screened. My main criteria were successful leadership experience, knowledge of tactics to improve the patient experience and employee engagement. They needed experience at a critical access hospital, and they need ties and experience in New Mexico. I think it's important that we want to recruit people that know New Mexico and are going to stay in New Mexico. That's my hope. So they will be interviewed by the directors that report to them, the medical staff, the senior leaders, and also the directors that report to other senior leaders. And they will have a meet and greet with the staff as well. So it's going to be a day-long event for each one of them, and hopefully by the end of July we have a new CNO selected. With the Emergency Department Provider Group electing to leave New Mexico, as you heard with the approval of the ESS contract, I do want to say that they are leaving New Mexico due to the unfavorable malpractice environment. And that is something that is going to have to be addressed over time, or you will continue to lose valuable physicians in the state of New Mexico. We are fortunate that ESS has agreed to provide these services for GRMC, and we look forward to that relationship. They are also currently providing our hospitalist services as well, so we already have a relationship with them. We've begun our OR light replacement project. It is organized 2 rooms at a time so that we don't, so that the surgery schedule is not disrupted, because we have 6 rooms. So the first 2 lights went in without a hitch, and the physicians are already very pleased with the quality. The match construction project continues, moving slowly forward. The architects have a meeting today with the Department of Health, and if that conversation goes well, we will be sending in our final review of the proposed plans so we can move forward. It will improve our labor and delivery rooms substantially, because you will now have windows in every room. If you've been in our current ones, there's no windows. It's like little dark caves. So they'll each have a window. They will have more space in the room. They'll have larger bathrooms, and it will also consolidate all of labor and delivery and postpartum into one unit. So we're looking forward to this finally getting accomplished. And this project is grant funded. Meditech, who is our electronic health record, and we're doing a big upgrade with them, has been on site this week. They've been meeting with our teams and providing in-person views of what the new EHR will look like. The comments have been favorable. That go live is scheduled for November 7th. With the higher temperatures this past week, a few of our chillers acted up. The mechanical issues are not uncommon in an aging building. I will tell you, we have a great plant ops team who work tirelessly to keep us going. We do apologize to any patients who were temporarily uncomfortable with the increased temperatures. While the temperatures in the OR were always within range, we elected to reschedule elective procedures on Monday and Tuesday in an abundance of caution. All have been rescheduled, and we should have 2 new compressors installed and functioning on our chiller number 1 this morning, hopefully. We look forward to Dr. Arsenault joining our team in September as our new radiation oncologist, and he will replace Dr. Hayostak. So, any questions?
Do you have any questions for Margie?
I just have a statement that I guess maybe I'll make now since Margie's standing there. Margie, I've had a family member who had to spend 4 days recently at Gila Regional, and in the previous 6 months had spent at least that much time in the 2 hospitals in Las Cruces. The experience here was so much better than the experience there, and I just want to let you know, and those here, and you can spread this word, that at least in this case, and I realize it's 1 data point only, it was a first-class healthcare experience. Within, I think, 2 minutes of getting to the ER, this family member was triaged. Maybe 5 minutes later, had a room, received excellent service from Inova and the hospital staff in the ER. The transfer to another room was great. Excellent view, lots of space in the room. It was quiet compared to the other rooms they'd been in. Remarkably quiet, and uniformly attentive and friendly staff. So thank you very much for that. Just want to make sure you heard that loud and clear.
Thank you very much. I mean, the staff appreciate hearing good news, and they do a great job. And I think if you do travel out of town, then you realize what you have in your hometown.
Thank you, Margie. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Health Tech Management Report. Mr. Manis?
I'll keep it somewhat brief unless you have lots of questions. The third portion of the Mutual Admiration Society comments, but I couldn't not take this opportunity to say some things as well, having had a long history here myself. So I do want to thank you all for your tireless commitment to both the hospital and the community, and I'll emphasize without compensation. You all stepped into a very sticky situation a little over 3 years ago, and actually at that time invited me to come and be part of that. And so, You know, we've been in this together for a long time, you all much closer to it than I. But you all have been, you know, as board members available, always available, and provided guidance to the leadership team here throughout these years. You've been parts of lots of really tough decision-making along the way, but your support was unwavering for the community and for the hospital. We have made great strides, as outlined by Patrick a little while ago, in improving both the care and financial turnaround of the hospital. We've upgraded a lot of equipment and obtained numerous external grants to further support the clinical and operational needs of GRMC. And as was pointed out a while ago, we've improved the financial position, currently sitting at 120-ish days of short-term cash, which is a vast improvement from March of 2020 when there was 9 days of cash. Do look forward to working with the new board members to continue to move this hospital forward, and trust that they will provide that same level of commitment and care and rigor that we've had thus far. It's been not easy, but and not sometimes even enjoyable, but a really great ride to see where we've been and where we are today and where this hospital can be in the future. You know, the expectation from me is that based on our financial performance year to date through 11 months and $78 million or so, 77.5, that we'll finish around 85 million net revenue for the year. I fully expect that within probably the next 2 years or so, we'll be knocking on the door, if not exceeding 100 million net revenue, which is a remarkable place to be as a hospital, and leaps and bounds from where we started 3 years ago at about 59 million net revenue. So just that progress, growing services, retaining services here in the community, and continuing to look for ways to improve care all along the way have been great. You all saw the budget and approved that a little while ago. Just emphasize John Freeman's involvement in that. John has been a stalwart for our company behind the scenes for a really long time as a financial expert, and really providing great insights. He has been undergoing some health challenges recently, but even through that has really prevailed and continued to do a great job, and always there and available. And then the last thing to mention is that we are continuing the CEO search and CEO recruitment process. As I mentioned last month, we've tapped that just a little bit so that we, at the appropriate time when the new board comes on, we'll have an opportunity to talk with them about expectations and characteristics that we'd be looking for in a new CEO, since they will be the ones appointing that person. And we'll be doing that very soon, as soon as they're on board here. And so I just want to make sure that that's set again today in this public session. So it's at the forefront of my mind, the forefront of our company's efforts and initiatives underway. It's not something that we're just not doing. With that, I'd stand for any questions, but do thank you for your time and commitment to this community.
You have anything for Mr. Maris?
Thanks, Scott. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Okay, next item on the agenda is board comments. Mr. Brown?
Oh, I guess I already made mine. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Medina?
It's just a simple thank you. Margie, Scott, Greg Brickner, these are the last few CEOs I worked with. Really appreciate your time. Scott, you really challenged me a lot. I really appreciated working with you, and Greg and Margie had that turnover from becoming an employee to becoming a county commissioner and so forth. And I appreciate your professionalism and mannerism in this whole event. I really want to tell you guys thank you. To the new board, best wishes, work hard. This community deserves a great hospital. So thank you guys so much for stepping up and being those members. Really appreciate it. Good group of individuals to work with. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Bellows?
Yeah, I want to thank the new board too. I'm excited for some new, fresh minds to step in and take our place. Want to thank you, Scott, for and Margie, Patrick, also Greg for your work here. I've heard a lot of good things about you, Margie. We appreciate your leadership, and I hope that Scott, you can find and the new board will help you find a new CEO that's not permanent, because that's impossible, but at least long-term, who can, because that's what we really need here is for stability and consistency. Things just fall through the cracks without having that. So we look forward to your work in getting that new long-term CEO here. Patrick, I appreciate you bringing that. You know, where we had been, it's good to look back, because we sometimes if we don't look back, we don't realize how far we've come. So yeah, and thank you, Scott, for what you pointed out. You know, $59 million in revenue just 3 years ago, 85 million now, and looking forward to 100 million gross revenue in a few years. I remember when I thought it was 10 days of cash on hand, but I've heard since from several of you, 9 days of cash on hand, and which isn't very much, and we had $4.8 million in accounts payable. I was told by Health Tech that they didn't even know how bad that was when they came here. We certainly didn't know it. So the hospital was bankrupt in 3 years ago, basically. And those aren't just my words. We've heard that from more than one CEO, so our CFO. So we have come a long ways. You know, those years of the 6 times 8, $6 million loss over eight years is remarkable. It's $48 million loss. I had one constituent who said, "Well, where if that money is lost, where is it?" And I wish it was as easy as just finding it and finding who had it or whatever.
That's
but
hilarious.
it was hard for me to explain that it's spent, it's gone, it's never coming back. It's not just lost, hidden in the closet somewhere. It's actually lost. So I know there's a lot of work to do, and I'm again glad that there's some fresh, competent, very competent, and I have the highest respect for the people that are taking our place. Some incredible life experiences that you've had, and I think that we're leaving the hospital in good hands with the new trustees, and I know they're going to make some great decisions to move the hospital forward, and that's what we need here in our community. At some point, we're going to have to look at that old facility and consider replacement. And I didn't think 40 years was old for a building, but for a hospital facility, you know, I've heard that it is. And hopefully the community at some point will get behind whatever we need to do to replace that facility, because it's gonna get to the point, and maybe we're there now, past there, where it's costing more to fund the old facility than to actually build a new one. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I'm decided to take full advantage of my last meeting as the board chair and write down some comments, because when I started thinking about what I wanted to say today, boy, did I have a lot to say. But I'd just like to start by thanking my colleagues for their time and commitment. This, as I think Scott said, boy, this has been one hell of a ride. I think it's safe to say that none of us had any idea where things were really headed when we came on board. I'd also like to thank Charlene. I'm pretty sure that no one has any idea how many hours she spent over the last 6.5 years on the hospital. Her level of knowledge about the hospital and about county business and about how the state works will be absolutely invaluable to the board. I'm 1,000% confident that we would not be having this conversation today if it had not been for the people who work at Gila Regional and Health Tech. Our people brought and continue to bring the courage, resilience, and local knowledge, and Health Tech brought and continues to bring the resources and expertise. that mark this turnaround of this hospital. Although it has been said a fair amount, I'm going to reiterate some of the context for where we're at today. 175 rural hospitals have closed since 2005. There are 200 more at risk of closing this year, and 600 more after that are at risk of closing in the near future. Fortunately, GRMC has moved off the immediate risk list, but we are definitely still on the list of 600. The hospital lost $48 million between 2013 and 2020, basically none of which was spent on salaries, plant maintenance, or badly needed basic equipment. And then there was the pandemic. The entire GRMC family risked their lives and the lives of their families to save the lives of our families, friends, and neighbors under the most stressful conditions you can possibly imagine. The irony of the pandemic is that it actually saved us from going bankrupt in May of 2020, when we weren't going to make the second payroll. Additional pandemic-related funding kept us going beyond that, long enough to get stabilized and onto our feet. But the good news is that what has been accomplished in that very, very challenging time frame. GRMC is now a critical access hospital and a designated rural health clinic, both of which have greatly stabilized the hospital's finances and made an average of $15,000 annual improvement in salaries and benefits per FTE. In the last 3 years, GRMC has also been designated a Level 4 trauma center, gained a full 3 years of Joint Commission accreditation, added swing bed services, added New Mexico's first heart flow services, a DEXA scanner, 3D mammography, saved the cancer center, and received millions of dollars in grants and capital outlay for badly needed equipment, replacing the HVAC system, the roof, and to bring our L&D department out of the Stone Age. None of this would have gotten done without the incredibly hard work of our care team, the expertise and resources of our management team, and of course without Priscilla Lucero. GRMC is stable at the moment, but we have a 40-year-old badly maintained facility and $50 million in capital needs. What we have before us is not unlike the aftermath of a huge, slow-moving storm. The water and electricity are back on and the danger of fire is past, but that could change at any moment. People are stressed, confused, and scared. Nothing will ever be the same, but they are busy picking up the pieces. Rebuilding is happening faster in some areas than others. People are recovering, some faster than others, but everyone is trying their best and getting better every single day. Resources are starting to arrive, and there's a glimmer of hope on the horizon. How we nurture that tiny flame of hope will determine the future of our hospital and what healthcare and wellness looks like in our communities for decades to come. We are standing on the threshold of a transformational opportunity. We can choose to open our arms wide and embrace true partnerships, or we can go it alone. We can choose between doing things the way we always have, or we can blaze a new path as a model of community wellness in a rural setting. We can be a regional hub for rural healthcare innovation, or we can be an ER and a feeder to hospitals far away from our families and friends. To the new trustees, thank you for taking on this enormous responsibility. I am counting on you to be objective, open-minded, and nonpartisan, to ask tough questions, choose facts over conjecture and gossip, and to follow through until you're completely satisfied with the answer. To never stop educating yourself about patient care and wellness and how our extremely broken healthcare system affects GRMC operations. To understand and embrace your responsibility to our patients, the people who care for them, and every single person in our community who may or may not need our hospital in the future. This is definitely our moment. It's up to every single one of us to make sure that we take advantage of the transformational opportunities in front of us. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. That does it for us. It's
Okay.
all yours.